Well, welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal, and I'm joined by BJ McDonnell, director of Studio 666.
What's up?
Not much. It's very cool to have you here. I was looking forward to this movie. As soon as I saw the poster, I almost thought, is this a real movie? Or is this like a joke? I was like, oh man, this is real.
A lot of people thought that. It's kind of hilarious. Everybody's like, is this real? Is this just like some like weird little internet thing? And it was really hard to not talk about it because we had to sign NDAs, and the amount of time that went on from like when we started the movie to when it finally got like announced was almost like 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we had to keep everything kind of like hush hush, and it's kind of funny to watch people do that. When they're like, a lot of people did that. Is this real? Is this really what's happening? So yeah, your reaction is legit.
We'll talk about that though. So when do you first hear about it? Are you involved right away, or like when do you get involved?
No, I got involved with two of my producer buddies. So I worked with Dave on the Run music video for the Foo Fighters Run music video, and I did a bunch of Slayer music videos, and I know Dave had seen those. Well, Dave came up with this idea while they were recording Medicine at Midnight to make a movie. Like he's like, "Oh fuck it, I'm just gonna make a movie." So he had his basic idea, and he went to Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey, who were the producers that I've worked with before in the past, and like we've come up with some pitch ideas and trying to get some things off the ground. They're like, oh, dude, send it to BJ and like see what he's all about, like horror films and like genre films and things like that, because I work a lot in that. So Dave sent it over to me, and I looked at it, and I basically like saw what he wanted to do, and I created like a lookbook of like certain things that we could change or like add to the script just to give a little bit more like depth to the house and like what's going on in the world and why it's haunted and things like that. But then had a meeting with them, gave him the lookbook. We talked about it. We talked about like the directors that we like, the movies we like, the vibe of what we wanted to do, a band movie first and foremost. Second, the Foo Fighters videos are usually pretty funny, so we wanted to keep that for the Foo Fighters fans. But we wanted to go like very gory, because not really like many band movies like that star the band haven't really done like a real horror kind of movie that has like the fun Jason Voorhees kind of like Nightmare on Elm Street kind of silly kills that are fun. You kind of root them on, and you're not taking it to heart and being like, oh my God, I'll never get that out of my head. And that was it. And we started pre-pro, and we were all on the same page, and we knew a bunch of people already together, like Tony Gardner, who did all the all the effects in the movie, because I used him for like a bunch of like Slayer things. He's a good friend of mine. It was just a good group of people. So it's more like a family vibe at that place, where we can all like talk and like not be like, oh, I don't want to make so and so mad or that. Like we can actually be like, oh, dude, that sucks. Let's try this. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It honestly has that vibe. It does feel well. First of all, it feels very fun, and it seems like everyone's having a good time making it. And yeah. I like all different type of horror, but I do like where the gore is so over the top. It's almost like Monty Python, where it's you're not going to be like actually afraid. You're going to have a good time watching it.
Yeah, and that's like bottom line is that's why we made this movie. We made it to have a good time, not to like go like to the movie be like, oh, I'm gonna be scared. No, it's like you're gonna laugh, and you're gonna see complete absurdity when it comes to like the kills and like how things go down. And what's more fun than killing off band members that everybody knows? It's kind of hilarious when you do that kind of stuff. So that was like a main thing that you nailed it. We just we wanted to have fun with this. We wanted people to go to the theater and have fun with it. We really just kind of want to make this more of like a cult classic, kind of like sit around with your buddies with some hot wings and a bucket of ice cold beers and turn it on and just have a good time at like a barbecue and laugh. That's really what we were going for.
I was really glad I got to see it in the theater, because we had snow here for a while, so I didn't get to see it the first week. And I was like, I hope it's still playing. And I mean, I like to see movie anyway, but however you see it. But in the theater, it's totally, especially horror movies, because it's fun having the people there with you.
It's a blast to have people there with you, and especially if it's a reactive crowd and people are having a good time with it. It just makes the whole experience so much better. That's why I always say, if you didn't see it in the theater, and you want to see it on VOD or whatever, or Blu-ray when it comes out, just like get your friends together, start having some drinks, and just have a great time. That's really what the movie is all about. It's the Foo Fighters, and blood and guts.
Yeah. So Dave Grohl is apparently he's a big horror fan. How about the rest of the band? Were they all as into it as he was?
They all were everybody was very into it when we were doing the thing. Like they were super stoked about doing the movie, and especially like we started shooting before COVID. And then the whole world shut down, so we had to stop shooting. And so I went to my house, and I had a whole remote editing station set up so I could edit with the editor. And we basically cut as much as we could together. And then we're like, all right, well, we should show the guys, because we knew it would get them pumped up because I think Dave thought that we were going to get like two dudes with handheld cameras and like a guy with a boom mic, and we were just going to do that. But my whole thing when I talked to him, I said, this movie has to have the horror film tone. It has to be shot like a professional movie, even though we didn't have a huge budget. It's like, we need to make sure that we, make this look legit, like legit film. Because we also did never expect it to go to theaters. This was always going to be something we thought was going to go to like Netflix or something like that. And that was it. So, once the band saw the stuff that we had previously shot when we were on lockdown, they were like, oh, we got to finish this movie. It's so cool. And they were only seeing stuff that wasn't colored or anything like that. It was just the raw, and no effects were put in or nothing like that. So it was cool.
Yeah. So how long have you known the band?
I did that Run video. It's funny because I've known their tour manager since I was in high school. And I grew up in a little town, Pensacola, Florida. And there's a guy named Gus Brandt. And when I was out of high school, I played in this punk band called Lick 57. Terrible name. But we were fun. Yeah. But Gus would actually book my band to open up for bands that were like on tour. So we like got the opportunity to open up for like Offspring and Pennywise and Sam I Am and the Toadies and Total Chaos and like Bouncing Souls and all these cool bands, and next thing I know, Gus is now becoming tour manager for the Foo Fighters. So he's kind of gone, right? Cut to, I'm doing a movie in Atlanta and the Foo Fighters are there. And there's also another guy that Gus employs named Ramel, who's a good friend of ours. So I called him up and I'm like, hey, we're in Atlanta too. Can you get us some passes? And sure enough, they brought us in. So we got some backstage passes. I got to watch the guys. Didn't get to meet them though, because it was very like kind of standoffish. And it's like all this time, like we had like this kind of in with them, like, or like kind of like this, like, what's that? What do they call that? The 1 degree from so-and-so, whatever it is.
7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It was like one of those kind of deals. And then I ended up, my buddy Brandon Trost, who's a DP friend of mine, he's like, hey, Dave Grohl wants to do a music video. Can you come in? I was like, yeah, of course. So I came in and met him on the Run music video. And then next time I got to really get to know the guys and get to know Dave and everybody, like when we actually went into pre-production with the movie. That was really when I really got to know the guys, and they're just great.
Yeah. If people don't know, you mentioned a few times, but you've done a lot of music videos.
Yeah. I've done a lot of stuff for, like, I did Exodus, Slayer. I've done one for Steve Vai that's not coming out yet, which is kind of awesome. And it's totally not my wheelhouse. Because most of the videos I always write and direct, they're always like kind of have like a storyline to it. Yeah. This is like straight up just Steve Vai rocking this crazy guitar that's so cool. And he's just doing it all by himself. And the interesting thing is watching, it's like this 3-neck guitar with a harp on it. And it's like, it's insane. So that's all I can really say about it, because it's not out yet, but it's like pretty cool. I'm a big music guy. I'm really like, that's my whole thing.
Me too. I'm curious because I think a lot of people don't think necessarily that videos, like, without MTV being big and playing videos, where do the videos go? Primarily online now?
Yeah, I mean, and going back to the Slayer stuff, that was my whole pitch. Whenever we were talking about, like, when I met the guys over at Nuclear Blast that were putting out the Repentless album, Slayer was meeting up. They wanted a horror director to kind of come in and do something. So I didn't have a pitch. I had nothing. They just said, hey, can you come in and talk? Don't worry if you don't have a pitch. We'll just, we want to feel you out. And that's the same. That as soon as I got there, I said, look, guys, so MTV is not our thing anymore, because MTV would censor the shit out of it. Like they really would, like, they would censor things all the time. Or like, I mean, look at the Danzig video where they split the chicken. Like that caused like all sorts of like crazy controversy. Or the one video, they trimmed it all down because like people were like, oh my God. But now that the MTV thing's pretty much just reality TV now, YouTube is the main platform that you get for music videos. So I said, how about this, guys? Let's make a Slayer video that's a real Slayer video that I don't think they've ever had before. So that's why I wrote the violence and the way the video is for Repentless. And it was only a one-off. I wasn't supposed to do the other two and make it a story. And because Repentless was so well received, everybody was like, oh, the band was stoked, and Gerardo at Nuclear Blast was stoked, and like they're like, we got to make a prequel and a sequel. So then I took that one middle video and I had to write a whole storyline around that.
Interesting. Yeah, I've thought of doing that because there's a lot of short film festivals. We do our own. Because I know a lot of independent musicians do really cool videos. Some of them, I don't know, some type of like a music video festival I think would be fun, even if it's virtual.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, because you can really nowadays you can make sort of a narrative with the music videos. My buddy Jason he lives in Pensacola, Florida, and he has a band called Modown. And he keeps sending me pitches for his band and music videos. He's really been exploring making his own music videos because he used to work in films too. Now he lives there, and he's like a wedding guy, which is funny because he's a total metalhead. But now that he writes his own pitches, he sends me ideas, sends me shots. I'm like, right on, dude. He's making narrative music videos. And I think the music videos like nowadays kind of lost a little bit of that, because now it's like usually like some dude's playing, it's really fancy looking, lights are gleaming up behind him, like the silhouettes and things, or it's a warehouse. It's, it's cool if you actually make a storyline. I think it's
that's the stuff I like.
Yeah, exactly. That's cool.
Yeah. So back to Studio 666 is are the characters that they play in the movie like anything like them? Are they like caricatures of them?
They're actually, it's exactly how they are. And that's and so Rebecca Hughes and Jeff Buer, the writers, when they got on board, they actually got to spend some time with the guys, and also like Dave and everybody and the producers kind of told them like their kind of sensibilities and their like what they're like, their personalities. And they basically wrote their characters in the script to be legit who they are. And that was another approach I wanted. I was like, I didn't want to make a movie where we had the guys from the Foo Fighters that were playing a weird version of themselves.
Right.
I wanted them to play themselves, but they're just caught up in a really bad situation. And so, because everybody sees Dave Grohl, and they're like, oh, it's Dave. Yeah, it's awesome. But now people get to see, hey, this is Pat, and this is Chris. This is Nate, Rami, and Taylor. Like, people now get to see like who they are for real, like in the band. So we kept it pretty legit to who they really are.
Yeah. And everyone was, you'd have already said, and you see some of the people get killed in the trailer too. So, and you said the band gets killed, a lot of them in the movie. Was everyone cool with that? Like, that, some of the band's going to get killed in the movie?
Yeah, everybody was on board for it because we all knew we were making something really fun. There was one time, like the Taylor kill that we did was way more elaborate, and we had to basically change that because it actually went really dark, and I actually really liked it. But I think Taylor got a little nervous about it because in the movie, like originally what was supposed to happen, like now we just do a really shocking thing, and I think it's very effective, and I love what we did. But in the original script, Taylor plays the drums, he finishes the song, and then there's a painting on the wall that you see behind Dave that has this weird barbed wire stuff on it. And that picture was always supposed to be part of the story because of the barbed wire. So Dave basically grabbed Taylor, shoves him against the wall, and then he crucified Taylor's hands into the wall, like kind of like a Jesus Christ thing. Yeah. Then he goes to the painting and pulls the barbed wire off and makes him a crown of thorns, and basically tortures Taylor. Like this whole thing, it would have been gnarly. And then he takes the symbol and did what he did with the symbol. But that was the original kill.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we had to cut it down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm probably not alone, but the sex scene kill is probably my favorite. That's like, so it's very fun. It's also very kind of throwback to like an old Friday the 13th, that's similar, but it's much more elaborate and it's super gory, but super very funny and just a fun time.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And my whole thing was I was trying to see if I could beat the amount of blood from Nightmare on Elm Street 1 when Johnny Depp gets killed.
Right, yeah.
That was my main goal. I don't think we beat it, but I think we did a damn good job. And I think that we did a killer chainsaw kill. So I'm happy with the way it came out. It was pretty awesome. It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch it with an audience?
Yeah, I saw it at the premiere with an audience. It's the first time I ever got I didn't even get to see a print before we actually released it, So the first time I saw it on a big screen was at the premiere with everybody there, and so it was a little scary because you haven't seen it projected yet, and like
right,
there's always something that goes wrong, and so like there actually in this movie there is some framing things that got messed up when it went to deluxe, so there's some frames that kind of aren't right. But the Blu-ray is going to be completely perfect in like the framing things that we're doing. So like when I was in the theater watching it, there was like moments where I was like, oh my God, because nowadays when you're editing and you hit send, anything can happen in the timeline, and it's like, unless somebody's proof checked it, which, I wish we would have been able to do. I didn't know they were sending it. Then little mistakes like that happen. Nothing major, but like, it was kind of a bummer, like seeing a couple little things like not quite right in the frame. But we rectified that with the Blu-ray and the DVD, so it's all perfect in that. That's
your first time. I guess it would be a weird experience because you want to like gauge the audience what their reaction is, but then you're also actually watching the movie to make sure everything's going well. So I don't know if you can pay attention to everything.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, this movie wasn't a studio movie; it was independent at first, and so I watched this movie so many different ways we cut it and so many different times. And the one time I didn't get to see the one, like the one that went to deluxe to get put through, there was some things that just had tweaked themselves a little wrong. And that was kind of a bummer. Like it could have been worse, but it was fine. But yeah, it's just hard now with like the computers and the way editing is, and just hitting buttons and hitting send, or like somebody's like importing some effects here, like while the editor's over here doing this, like, imports. It's just crazy. It's not like the old days.
I currently do have a movie that's being edited, and we're all different. I'm in the northeast, and the other people are on the west coast. So I understand to a degree how it's being sent back and forth and looking at rough cuts, and it's weird.
Double check everything. Like even when you think it's good, double check it. That's my advice. Double check it.
So who did the effects? What is it? Somebody you worked with before?
Well, which effects? You talking about the blood effects or like the CG?
Well, I guess there's different things. Yeah.
The blood effects and someone I worked with before, this guy named Tony Gardner, who I've known a long time and worked on other movies with. And he did the Slayer video stuff that I did. He also did the Exodus videos. And he's really awesome. And the guy like has done everything. Like even from Aliens, the little chest burster that comes out of the chick, it's on the wall. Like he actually like designed that with Stan Winston Studios when he was like younger. He did the Blob, like the remake of the Blob. So
that's one of the better remakes people don't talk about. But I love the Blob remake.
Oh, it's killer. It's such a good remake. And they did such a good job. And you got to think about the time when they shot that. That was like, what, in the 80s, like late 80s? I can't remember when that came out.
Yeah,
but like,
it's practical effects and
really good.
Yeah.
So he's been around and done a lot of things. And so we were lucky to have him. And he's always just a good dude, and we basically wrote a lot of the kills around what he wanted to do, because we actually asked him, like, what do you always get a script and it's like, okay, here's the script and this is how this person dies. This is how it is. And then Tony has to go and like create that. This one, we were like, well, Tony, now that we have this thing, let's figure out like kills that you would like to do. And so he made a list of like the kills that he wanted to do. And that's how we incorporated the kills in the movie. Like we wrote those like because Tony wanted to do those, especially the chainsaw one.
Oh, that's I think that's pretty awesome then. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the house? Where did you find the house to film it at?
So the house is a place that Dave rented, I guess, a long time ago when he was remodeling his house. So, and the house is like not too far from where Dave lives. So he moved into there, and like, when they were remodeling his house, and then I guess at some point he liked the acoustics in there. I'm not sure what the whole story is, but they basically moved into the house to record the last album, the Medicine at Midnight album. So they could kind of be in their own world, and he has his own studio and things like that. But I think they were going for a different sound. So that's like when they were sitting there making the Medicine at Midnight album, I think that he was starting to get the ideas of like what he wanted to do. And like the cool thing is that, when we were in pre-pro, sometimes sets are being built and you don't know what it's going to look like until like 2 days before. The great thing about pre-pro is I could walk around the whole house the whole time with the script and look at certain areas and kind of brainstorm like what I wanted to do and like how I wanted to do it and like where things were going to play and set up. So it was a really nice, really cool way to do that whole thing, but it was something that Dave had previously lived in. Then they were recording the album, and like literally right when they finished recording the album, they took all the gear out and we moved all our gear in. It was that fast.
Someone I had it in my notes, but someone, I want to get their name here. I thought it was a good question was, Dave has some background and he's done acting before, but the rest of the band, I don't think have. Just along those lines, directing, the guys that haven't done a lot of acting.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I think they did a great job, for not being actors. I mean, they've been in front of the camera a lot because of like the music videos and things like that. But it's a whole different beast when you're actually having to like carry a narrative and they have to actually do dialogue and things like that. Yeah. But the way we kind of went into this was like, we weren't too worried about it being like perfect, like acting, because it's supposed to feel like the Beatles.
Yeah, it's really them. So yeah.
Yeah. And we wanted to kind of capture that same feeling. Like we didn't care if they were like, not perfect actors. That was like kind of the beauty of what we were doing, because it was the throwback to those old school films. And that's what we really wanted to encapsulate with this movie. We weren't trying to like, look, we worked on performances and they had to know like what was going on.
Yeah. And I don't say this as a negative. I mean, this kind of movie's not Citizen Kane. So it does, you're supposed to have a good time. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And for people that get it, they get it that way. It's like funny because there's sometimes you read critics and things like that, and they're like, oh my God, the acting. You're like, dude, you don't even get it. So I'm not even going to read the rest of your critique, because if you're trying to base it on acting, you don't get the joke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I say on the show, like, I personally like Taxi Driver and Basket Case like as much as each other, but I know that Basket Case isn't technically as good as Taxi Driver, but I enjoy them both the same,
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, I love Basket Case. I love both of them. They're awesome.
Yeah,
it's pretty.
Yeah. I don't know why I picked those two, but I do like. There's something about those gritty New York movies from the '70s and early '80s that are very cool.
Yeah, 100%. There's something to be said about those films. It's like, You know, even like some of the stuff in LA too, like when you look at Repo Man and those kind of movies, I love Repo Man. I think it's so cool. You know, there's a weird loss. Like people don't make those kind of movies anymore. Right? There's something that just isn't how it used to be. I don't know if it's the digital look of digital cameras now.
People say that.
I think it's like there's just something that got lost there, and it's hard to replicate that same kind of feel. Those movies are so awesome.
Yeah, I know. Even like when they restore some of them, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I saw the original 35 millimeter print, really bad print at a theater in Boston, but it was awesome. And then I saw the restored version, and it was so clean, but actually took a lot away from the movie. I think it cleaned it up too much.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It kind of makes those films scary. Like I always. Even with Studio 666, I put a lot of grain into this because I wanted it to feel like a super 16 millimeter film. I didn't want to clean I didn't want a clean look. I wanted to make sure like you see like on the walls of where it's white, you feel the busyness of of a film grain.
Right.
And it's this. There's something to be said about 16 millimeter horror films that there's a texture to those movies that are actually kind of scary, that make that movie scary. If you do something that's too clean, I sometimes feel like, unless it's meant to be clean, but like, I think like those throwback to the old school kind of movies like that, when you're adding like a bit of like the 16 mil grain, I think it adds a lot to it.
It's almost like you're not supposed to be watching it. Like it's like it's like a, not a snuff film, but you're just not supposed to, this is something, you're not supposed to be digging.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What was it like filming the Jeff Garland fight scene?
Oh man, that was hard because so going back to the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, the last night of shooting, we were like, when everyone was starting to get wind of like the world is shutting down, like that kind of thing, we all were kind of like, what do we do? What do we do? And it was a night shoot. It was the fight scene with Jeff. And in LA, it started raining. It poured rain, and we were like, what do we do? And then the producers were like, well, what do you think? Can you shoot anything? I was like, well, yeah, like I can easily like make we can start the scene from when Nate and them like going up, and we can add some like little CG rain, but then we can cut back to the very final scene and it's actually raining. As like, it kind of gives the movie a little bit more production value because now we have a whole raining scene at the end of the movie we didn't plan on having, but it was pouring rain. It's really weird too, because when you look at Jeff, it's strange because water like did not even like, it's so weird because like Dave's soaking wet, but Jeff had like, he was like repelled. It's like he was like had Rain-X on his face. Like he's not even wet. But it was like pouring rain on his face. It was crazy, but it was hard. So we shot that first. We only got that part. When we came back from the pandemic, we had to shoot all the stuff leading up to that. And so there was like a good 6 months that went by that we came back. We're like, all right, we kind of know what we're doing. Here we go. So, the stunt guys had it all planned out. We went, it was crazy. And Jeff was great. He's
great in the movie. I'm always a big fan of his, seeing him in Curb Your Enthusiasm or whatever. So I was really happy when he popped up because I didn't know, a lot about the movie. I just knew it was this horror movie with the Foo Fighters. And I was like, I gotta go see this. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah. We lucked out too with a lot of the cast. I mean, like even Jenna Ortega, getting her in there, like.
Yeah, it's a great cast. There's a lot of like little surprise people that pop up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that's the kind of beauty of having like Dave knows all these people over here and I knew all these people over here. And we all just kind of called up friends and said, hey, can you come in and do like one night or 2 nights and do this or that? And that's kind of like how we got the cast put together, like going back to the Slayer thing, like Krug, that's Kerry King. So I called Kerry. I was like, dude, can you be in the movie? You won't have to be here long, like maybe 2 days. And you get to be, fried and you get to float and be a ghost. And he's like, oh yeah, man, I'm there. So it was kind of bad.
Yeah, that's a really fun character. And when I'm watching some of the dialogue with them, I assume there's probably some in jokes, like or at least like some ideas of what those kind of people are like in reality and how they look at the band and stuff. But it was very fun.
Yeah, like the cranky roadie guy that's just tired of doing all this stuff and just doesn't get any glory.
Yeah.
So you have to be King playing that news like from Slayer.
Yeah, it's very fun. Yeah, the whole thing is very fun. I was in LA 2019 right before the pandemic, and it rained. And I remember, to me, it's not a big deal, but everyone there was freaking out like it was the end of the world.
Oh, people can't drive. You like as soon as it starts raining in LA, it's like just stay home.
I do remember though at the Hollywood Boulevard, it was so slippery. And my friend, I was staying with Michael, he was like, "That's because it's so dirty that all the oil rises up." And I thought he was joking, but it was true. No. It was like an oil slick on the.
Oh yeah, people drive like maniacs too when it rains. They don't even like take in consideration. That's why you see so many wrecks. I'm from Florida, I grew up in Florida. I'm born in California, but I learned how to drive in rain and like stick shift and all that stuff. So it's like I feel like I'm a pro. I'm a Cali rain pro.
So which came first? Like, did you want to direct movies? Did you want to make videos? Like, which was the first thing?
So I grew up. My grandfather was an old actor, and so I used to go to film sets with him. And he did he was On the Waterfront. He was in a show called High Chaparral. Abbott and Costello meets Captain Kidd. Roustabout with Elvis. Like he's an old school dude. His name was Leif Erikson. That was my grandfather. So it kind of sparked this interest in like making movies. So when I was growing up in Florida, because he also had a house there, we had the old VHS camera where we had the VHS in the backpack with like a motorcycle battery and the big cables and all that. And me and my friends would make action films, like, just doing stupid stuff, like blowing up G.I. Joes and just making, having fun with it. Then I got kind of in the music scene and kind of like left that whole thing. And then when that kind of died out, I was like, well, I don't know. There's nothing else that really interests me. Like, I don't want to be a fireman or a doctor. No offense. I mean, it's a great career. Everybody's like, oh, you should go do this, that. And I'm like, yeah, but I kind of like want to like pursue like, being in the films. So I moved to LA, went to film school, didn't know what to do. And I became a grip on set. So I learned like set etiquette. And my whole goal was to direct. But then I kind of got into being really interested in being a camera operator because like what they shoot is what you see as the movie. Mm-hmm. So my path of directing kind of went stale for a second, and I went on a path of being a camera operator, which actually for me was like the most vital, important lessons I could learn, being with directors of photography, with the directors, learning how to compose the shots, telling like the emotions through camera movements and things like that. It was like the best film school I could ever have. And then I finally later on like got back into like, all right, I'm gonna try to start directing again and like start getting into that, But I love both careers. Like I like directing, and it's awesome, but I also love being a camera operator. It's like probably the two best jobs on set. It's just directing. You have you have to be committed way longer on that. Right. When I'm camera operating, at the end of the day, I just can be like, all right, see you guys later, and I take off on a plane and I go to the next job.
Do you do the camera when you're directing?
No, I've done it before, and I realize that I can't concentrate on like the performance. I only once I start doing the camera stuff, I only can concentrate on the framing. And I kind of let the actors, like, unfortunately, like I've learned that I don't give the actors the attention that they really need. I feel like, and that's why I just hands off on the things now. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get the director of photography, camera operators. The Slayer videos, I did do my own Steadicam just because we couldn't afford it, and I did that. But other than that, like now I try to back away so I can actually really concentrate and not like, try to be. I'm not Robert Rodriguez, and that's just not me. Like I also like the camaraderie of everybody coming together that you trust to like do a job, and because you actually get good ideas. People throw ideas around, and you like, oh, that's a great idea. I
mean, that's how you kind of said Studio 666 worked. Everyone had different ideas.
Yeah, we went in with the plan, but it's like. I like it when the camera operators come up and say, oh, I know we're shooting that, but wouldn't it be cool if we were like over here getting this shot right here? And I'm like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. And it's like, I find that more enjoyable because everybody feels like they're a part of it. And it's like, directing's great. I'm working with the actors doing that, but I also think it's a great thing when everybody's kind of making the film. It's really like a good teamwork situation. And I think your product comes out a lot better, and people are really enjoying what they're doing when they do that. Yeah.
So your first feature was Hatchet 3, which also they actually have a similar vibe to Studio 666. It's gory and very fun and kind of silly and stuff. So now you did the camera on Hatchet 2. I don't know if you did anything on Hatchet 1, but I assume that's how the directing came about for Hatchet 3.
I did. I was the camera operator, Steadicam guy on Hatchet 1 and 2. Okay. I did both of them. And yeah, so that's really how it kind of came about. Yeah, once part 3 came up, I talked to Adam, and he was just like, hey, do you want to do this one? And I don't know why. Like, honestly, like I think that Hatchet 2 got a lot of backlash into things, and I don't know like what Adam's mindset was at that point, but he wasn't really interested in directing that. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it, because I also knew the actors. I knew like how things went. I knew the story. I knew what we were going for. So it was kind of just like, instead of bringing somebody else in that hasn't been on the set before, then why not? And that was great. It was a good little stepping stone. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make Hatchet 3 a lot darker, and I wanted to take the silliness out of it. Uh-huh. That was like when we first started talking about it, I was like, can we go like, let's just like kind of revamp it. Like, let's make this scary. And I remember pitching an idea at first because we had done everything in the swamp, but I was like, how about, I said, why wouldn't it be cool if we actually found in the daytime, you find Victor Crowley's body and you put him in a body bag and they bring him back to the police station with all these other bodies. And when the sun goes down, because he reanimates at night, that when the sun goes down, he reanimates in the police station, and there's a huge, like almost like Terminator-like situation in the cop station. That's what I wanted to do that so bad. I pitched that idea, but I got shut down.
Well, that's unfortunate. I like the idea personally.
It'd have been cool.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have been out in the middle of the swamp getting chased by alligators. So there's a plus there too. Because my Hatchet we shot in a real swamp. Like we shot it at
Oh, really?
Swamp. Yeah, the other ones shot Hatchet 2, there's some daytime exteriors in 1 and 2 in New Orleans, but it's like we only went there to do like these little, like a couple exteriors to sell it, because most of Hatchet 1 was shot at a place called Sable Ranch up in Simi Valley. Or not Simi Valley, Santa Clarita. And then Hatchet 2 was actually shot in Los Angeles, like at a soundstage, and they just had a bunch of plants and they moved them around, kind of like how they did that movie, The Descent, where they had a bunch of boulders you could move around and be like, oh, we're in a part of the cave now. That's kind of how Hatchet 2 came about. And I feel like you could really tell, like it kind of like you were limited to what you could see. Mm-hmm. And whenever I did this, I wanted the look to be different. If I couldn't change the tone of the movie, I wanted to make sure that we could make it a different look. Like even like with the aspect ratio is completely different. Like, the I think 185 is what Hatchet 1 and 2 is. And then I made mine 240, more cinematic, with the letterbox. And I used Panavision lenses, and like I really tried to make it more of like a real movie aesthetic. Make Victor Crowley look a little bit darker. When the house is on fire, he's lit by firelight, which makes him more menacing and more scary. And he just doesn't run into like moonlight and go rah, like it's kind of silly. Yeah. So I tried to my take on that. I tried to make that movie a little bit more like darker, but staying with the same kind of like vibe and comedy and cheesiness of the first two.
Yeah. I like that sometimes when especially if a franchise has gone on a while, instead of just, it's the same thing over and over, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1 and 2, they went the reverse route where the first one's very dark and the second one's basically a comedy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's pretty funny. I haven't seen the new one yet. I have to watch that.
I think I'm in the minority. I liked it, but I've seen a lot of hate for it, but it's basically just nonstop death. So if that's what you want, I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah. I haven't seen it. I'm like I said, I'm on location, so I haven't really caught up to much movies yet. I haven't seen X, or I haven't seen the new Scream. I haven't seen anything. I've just been so busy with this stuff. So
yeah, I haven't seen X yet either. I would like to see it. I've heard good things.
I hear good things, and I like that director. I think Ty West is good. Yeah. So I'm excited to see that one. And Jenna's in it, so she's great.
Yeah. By the way, Adam Green, that was one of our first guests when we started the show in 2006, when Hatchet was coming out and we were promoting it. We were friends on MySpace. But do you still stay in touch with that?
You just threw out the MySpace card?
Right. Yeah. I actually tried to log into that recently, but I couldn't figure out. I was just curious if it was still there, but I couldn't figure out how to log into it.
Yeah. That guy that's like, Tom is your friend. It's like, I guess that guy's like a super millionaire now. He's like living on yachts and being badass. All right.
Do you still stay in contact with Adam?
No, not really. Like we kind of went our own separate ways after Hatchet 3. Just wasn't. We didn't really see eye to eye on some certain things. And it's no offense. It's like he has his thing. I had my thing. It was just kind of like we don't really keep up.
Yeah. So I assume you're always a horror movie fan.
Oh, always. I've always been always loved horror films. I grew up on horror films. My parents basically didn't regulate anything that I watched. And I think at my age, there was a certain time, I don't know how old you are, but I'm, when I was growing up, back in my day, HBO, it was like HBO just first kind of came out.
Yeah. So I'm 46. I think we're similar.
So we're the same age. Yeah. So I just remember my parents would always go to their friend's house and they'd leave me and my sister at home, and my sister was older, so she would babysit. And as soon as they left, me and Chrissy, my sister, would put on HBO, and then it was always horror films on Fridays or Saturday nights, and it kind of shaped us in a weird way. Growing up watching the John Carpenter movies and we kind of grew up in that world of it's on cable, you can watch it, and no one's telling us it's a bad thing. So, I was obsessed. This is really sad. I was obsessed with Escape from New York when I was in kindergarten.
I love Escape from New York. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love that movie. That and The Thing. The Fog, all that stuff. It's I love all those movies. So that's kind of how we grew up. So I've always been a horror fan, but I also like action movies and
Yeah. I mean, I like movies in general, but, like the horror movies. But by the way, I'm just going to mention real quick, even though they're not paying me, I mention a lot. If anyone ever brings up the Thing board game is excellent. You can play all the different people. And it really, so you don't know who's the Thing, or if anyone is the Thing, they might be the Thing. If you are the Thing, you have to you tried to sabotage everybody else, And it really, while you're playing with a group of people, it really builds like paranoia amongst everybody.
Yeah, you gotta get a little dish out with your little sample of blood. The thing.
Yeah, you can do that actually. And
do they really have that?
Yeah, it's in the game. You could do it. And then
that's awesome.
I always remember this one thing as we were playing, and the three guys, we decided to burn the girl. She, a friend of ours, because we thought she was a thing, so we burned her alive with the flamethrower, and then it found out she wasn't. And we actually felt guilty afterwards. So like, man, we just burnt this woman alive in the game.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, couldn't trust it. Well, that's the scariest thing about the thing. It's like you're doing a movie where, like, one, you're stuck in a place where you can't take off and go running anywhere because you'll freeze to death.
Yeah.
You don't know who's, the bad guy. Like, you have no clue. So it's like, it's really like, it's like, who do you trust? Who do you trust? And you can't get away from it. It's a, and actually people go, oh, what's your favorite horror film? And I usually say The Thing. And people are like, oh, no, it's a sci-fi movie. I'm like, no, man, it's like a full-on horror film. It's a there's sci-fi, but it's really legit a horror film. Yeah. A very well done one. And it still holds up to this day.
That argument always kind of annoys me anyway. Like, I don't even know why it matters in the first place. Like, do you like it less if it's sci-fi or horror? But they say people, same thing with Predator and Alien, but Alien's only sci-fi because it's in space. I mean, it's just a straight up horror movie on a spaceship.
Oh, dude, Alien 1 is rad. Aliens is still my favorite one. I'm so into that one, and like nothing's beat that one for me yet. I love Aliens. That one's so good. Yeah,
it is good.
And then Predator 1 and 2 are awesome too. I mean, those, it's sci-fi, but it's also horror. Things scary.
Yeah, I'm fine. It can be either way. But the thing about The Thing too, like when I was a kid, I really liked it just because of the monsters. But as you get older, like there's so much more to the movie. So it's kind of like a perfect horror movie, I think, because it has like every element I like about it. The acting's great.
Really
the feel of it's great. And the wild monsters are awesome.
Yeah, it's just a really good script. Like I thought it's fantastic. I love putting it. I've watched it probably at least once a year, just put it on. It's like, oh yeah, this movie, got to get in there and watch it again.
Yeah.
So good.
I like big monsters in a suit. That's cool and all, but like the aliens in Alien, it's very alien. It's very bizarre and weird looking, where it's just there's heads with tentacles and stuff.
Oh, it's so cool. I love it. Yeah, really good.
Are you working on anything currently?
I'm reading a bunch of scripts for things to direct. I haven't found anything yet. I just got a book I'm going to be reading today that we might turn into a movie. So I actually got that today, so I have to start reading that. But the movie I'm on right now, I'm working in the Dominican Republic, and I'm working on a movie called Naiad, and it stars Annette Bening and Jodie Foster. And
nice.
Yes, and we have a couple more weeks left of this thing. It's and I'm sitting here at the DR in my apartment, overlooking a great ocean right now. Yeah, it's not bad.
That's very good. Yeah, and talking.
Yeah. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working on some things. We'll see what comes up. You never know until you're there. I never count on anything until I'm actually there on the set, like working. Like you can get so far, and then all of a sudden something happens that just pulls the plug. So I'm always like, we'll see what we're doing. I don't know if we're gonna get this going yet or not. But day one, when you're on there, like, all right, it's real. We're making the movie or making the video or whatever we're doing.
Right. Yeah, I understand the very little I've done, and I got but I learned quick that just because like you think it's happening doesn't necessarily mean it's happening. So.
No, I always exhale on the last day of shooting and just go, oh God. Then you just go take a vacation for a week and just let it all out and then come back to it later so you can clear your head. It's it's kind of a cool thing. But yeah, you're like holding your breath just to get the things made.
Yeah. Have you ever, because I'll be honest, this came up the first movie I produced, which we did right before COVID, and it was a bad experience at the time, and I was like, I'm never doing that. I'm going to quit. And everyone who told me like, that's what everyone says. And then like a couple months later, like, oh yeah, I want to keep doing this. Was there ever a time like you just thought like, I don't want to do this anymore?
No, it's not really. It's just like, I used to be obsessed with trying to be just, I have to direct, like then I went to camera operating, but it was always in my head, like I have to direct. And at the age I am at now, I'm just like, whatever happens, and it's cool because my career as a camera operator has been amazing. And it's like, it's taking me all over the place and I really still enjoy it. And do I like directing better? Yeah, of course I do. But there's a whole different thing involved there. There's like so much more of a time commitment when you're directing because just, some people don't realize that, there's pre-pro, then you're actually shooting the movie. And then after that, anyone's made films, then you're sitting there and editing and visual effects and coloring and sound design. And it takes a really long time. And then I've been a camera operator for over 20 years, shooting movies. So, and it's, when you go into like the logistics of it, you're like, well, I've been doing this for 20 years and I'm not too far away from like getting enough hours for my retirement at some point. And so like, why would I let that kind of go? But also it's like, if there's a directing gig coming up, I'm not going to turn it down, because I'm in the Directors Guild. So like you also get like a retirement there, like if you do a certain amount of movies. So hopefully I'll get both, but I'm trying to juggle that and maybe be too much of a work whore. And, I don't have any friends anymore because I don't see anybody anymore. I'm always like on location. So whatever.
I saw former guest Marty Matulis is in Studio 666 caretaker. That was very cool. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, Marty's a great dude. Like we were so happy to have him. And that was like, we talked about who's going to play the caretaker, and it really came down to like me and Tony were talking. And because our movie didn't have a massive budget, we were like, well, let's see. Like I was kind of throwing around the idea of like, I didn't know Tony. I mean, I didn't know Matulis, Marty at all. I just kind of like, I knew of him, but I was like, well, what if I call Derek Mears and see if he wants to come in? And then Tony was like, well, no, I already have like the head casts and things like that for Marty. So we already have that stuff. I was like, okay. He goes, you should try out Marty. So I talked to Marty and we hit it off really well. And then I was like, okay, yeah, man, you're going to be awesome. And he did. He came in, he was a total pro, super cool dude. And I thought he was right for the part.
Yeah, I do think sometimes people think that like, if you're got a mask or a lot of makeup, like it doesn't matter who they are, but those people that you mentioned, Derek Mears, and there's a lot of people like that. There's a presence and stuff about that. You can't just put anyone in a mask.
Well, that's the thing. The same thing when you have like the Annabelle movies I've done where you have the demons and things in the background. Alex Ward, he plays a lot of those things. And Alex is actually one of the members of Dream Widow in my movie. I brought him in because I've worked with him a bunch, and he's like, he's a creature actor. So there's a certain way that they move. There's a certain way they play the parts. Because look, some people just say, oh, no, let's just get some old extra somewhere, like some background guy. We'll put him in the suit. And a couple of times, it just doesn't work because they don't know how to move. They're not playing a creature. They show up and go, all right, what am I doing? I'm going to wear this and I'm going to stand in the corner. Okay. No, you need somebody that's going to be like, all right, what's this character all about? What's his story? What's his backstory? What is he now? Like, how menacing is he or whatever? Like, it makes a lot more sense to have people that are creature actors because they just do the right thing. And they're great, when you have that.
Yeah,
it's not easy.
Yeah. So you said the physical release. So eventually we'll see there'll be a Blu-ray.
There will be a Blu-ray. I'm hoping to hear when we're going to do the commentaries, and like I'm hoping there's a great blooper reel that I hope goes on there. And I know that we shot, a lot of behind the scenes stuff the whole time we did the movie. So curious to see how the behind the scenes was. Like, I kind of love like what Rob Zombie does with his behind the scenes. He almost makes it like a film school thing. And so like, he'll cut like a 4-hour, from pre-pro to production to post-production. So people that are actually interested in making movies get to actually like watch the product, like watch what it really is like to work behind the scenes. I would love for that to happen with this, but I'm not sure what's going to be there. I'm pretty sure the blooper reel will be there, and we'll see. But yes, there will be a physical release.
A lot of guests on the show and a lot of just friends of mine are, in independent film, and almost none of them went to film school. And a lot of them say they listen to commentary tracks or watch the specials on Blu-rays or like, sort of like what you're saying, were on just on sets and learned how that was their film school.
Yeah, honestly, I tell everybody they go, because I went to film school because I had no idea where to start. And I didn't know. And I couldn't afford a really expensive film school. So I went to Los Angeles City College. For me, because like USC and UCLA and AFI and these places, they were so expensive. And I'm coming I was like a freaking waiter at the Olive Garden like before that. And I drove out to California and basically kind of lived with my grandmother. And I was like, well, I don't know where to go. And so Los Angeles City College provided me like $11 a unit or something like that they have a film production, like a film course there. So that's where I went. But I learned good, doing that. I kind of learned movies and like the history of the movies. I didn't really learn about how to make movies. So until I actually became a grip on set, which going back to what you were saying of being a crew member, that's where I really gained all the knowledge of how things worked. And there's an etiquette you learn if when you do that, you start to see the right protocols or who's in charge of what, who do you ask for this or that? Because sometimes I've been on jobs where you get a director is I just graduated AFI and I'm directing this movie. And then they're like rolling wild sound and like everybody's quiet. And then they're going, what's going on? What's happening? And everyone's going, shh.
Right.
They have no idea what we're doing. I've seen that before. So I think, for anybody that's actually interested in going or becoming in production, I honestly say get your foot in the door, go work on a film set. And it's not, if some people are like, how do I do that? You just go to Atlanta, go to, freaking New York, or go to LA. And
that's another thing comes up. It's not just LA, almost wherever you are, there's probably some type of film community, nearby.
Yeah, 100%. So you can get your foot in the door, and it's like the best film school. And not only that, it's the best film school that you're getting paid to take, not you're paying to. So you're getting paid to actually work on these things, and you're learning. That's like any production people, like that's my advice to them.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be something big, because I've taught people, that started on a trauma film set, which is awesome. Very low budget, and they went on to do a lot of things. So.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of trauma. So I'm wondering how this next Toxic Avenger is going to be. I
am too. I just had Lloyd was just on again just a couple weeks ago, Lloyd Kaufman, and he was talking about it. That's what I asked, and he was like, "Oh yeah," but he was just kidding. But he said, "Oh, they don't care what I think." But he was looking forward to the movie. So I don't know. I mean, it's a very strange idea that it's a big budget with I forget the actor from who was a Cyrano and Pete Dinklage.
It's funny. Like Legendary Pictures putting out Toxic Avenger. I'm like used to them putting out like these massive movies, and then you're like, wait a minute, Toxic Avenger, which I'm totally on board for. I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so, I'm very interested. Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's before its time, the original one, because it's a lot about bullying before like people were really talking about that. So I don't know. I'm interested.
Melvin the Mop Boy.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to ask about the runtime of Studio 666, because when I went in, I was concerned. I was like, well, it's like 2-hour movie. Is that right? But it didn't seem long when I'm watching it. But did anyone say that to you? Like, oh, you should make this shorter?
Oh, well, the thing is, like, when you first make the movie, like we had like a 2-hour, 10-minute runtime when we first assembled the movie. I had to trim it down. We actually did make a 90-minute version of it, but it was so choppy and so like, because of like, look, you get a script and you have 6 guys you have to deal with, and you have to tell the story, and you have to go from point A to point B, and there's so many things you got to do. Is it a little bit long? Yeah, it's a little bit long. I'll admit that. I will say it's a little bit longer runtime, but I always feel like if you're invested in the movie, and it does move pretty quick. It just depends on how much you're enjoying yourself with the film. Some people like that didn't get it or didn't want to, like, weren't into it. They were like, oh my God, when's this going to be over? It's a little long, but when we did a couple different variations to see, and this was the best option that we could come up with, like whenever we cut it down to size, because there were some other scenes that were cut out and things like that. So, I'm happy with it. I'm happy with the way it is. But yeah, if I had the option to be able to trim it down, I would have. But I did try that. It was too choppy. Yeah, it didn't have a flow anymore.
Okay. Yeah. This is to me, it had kind of sort of a Tenacious D vibe to it. I'm a big fan of Tenacious D.
Oh yeah. It's funny because I wanted to actually, when we got done shooting, I was like, it'd been kind of rad to do like an Avengers ending with those guys. So like after the credits,
so it's like the universe.
Like, like just make it like a weird Avengers thing. I was gonna say, like, I talked to the guys who was like, we were too far gone to do it, but I wanted to, like, when the credits rolled, the screen would come back up and it'd just be sitting there on the book in the daytime at the pool, because last time you see it's at the pool, it's sitting on the deck, and then you see some feet walk up and they grab it and then the camera tilts up with the book, and it would have been Tenacious D being like, oh man, I heard this older band was here and I know what's going on, but look what I just found. You know what I mean? Like, and just kind of end it that way. Just like, just to be like, oh, it could be a part 2.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, but along those lines, well, any plans to do a sequel or hopes or talks?
You never know
how things go.
I have ideas for a sequel if they ever wanted to do it. It'd be like, we would see how that goes. There's also other ideas we were throwing around, like if we just kept making movies, like go another genre, like make a full-on like action film with the Foo Fighters, or like make a Gilligan.
I like this,
yeah, something like that. I did have an idea of like, how to make Studio 666 happen, but that's all up here. I can't give away my storyline.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But yeah, it'd be fun. We'll see how it goes. Like maybe they'll want to do it at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned Rob Zombie, and I saw you worked on a lot of Rob Zombie movies. I guess, what's he like to work with as a director?
I love Rob. My whole thing with Rob, and I've told people before, it's like when you go on a set with Rob, Rob's got a very creative eye, and he's very like visual, and he's like more of an artist when it comes to like the framing of things and like how to do stuff. So my training as a camera operator, it's like, you usually have to follow a certain line, and you do your masters, you do your mediums, you do your tights, blah, 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 your inserts. But with Rob, it's kind of cool because you kind of throw the book out and just say, all right, what are we going to do? And you cross the lines. As long as the shots are cool, you get to be really creative. And, it's a neat experience because you're just doing stuff that's kind of more artistic, and Rob's really into that. And so like, I learned a lot working with Rob, like really like not having to go always traditional, like really just breaking the lines and just making it work out in certain ways. And so I love working with him. He's like, for me, he's just, visually, he's fantastic.
Were you around a lot of the crew, because he has like a lot of the same players in a lot of his movies, Bill Moseley, Sid Haig.
Yeah.
Were you around a lot of those guys? Sherry, obviously.
Yeah, I did Devil's Rejects. I was on that. Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and 31. And he always kind of keeps the same people coming in and out. My wife did what's the sequel to what's the sequel I'm thinking about? I can't remember the name of it. He just did it. Not the
Three from Hell.
Three from Hell. My wife worked on that, and so that was a bummer. Kind of seeing like what happened to Sid Haig.
It was very sad.
He was like, it was kind of his last thing, and he was such a sweetheart. The first time I met him, I was out in the desert and we were shooting all that stuff in the motel on Devil's Rejects, and there was a craft service set up. And I walked up to the craft service table and I saw this big hand come in. I looked over and it was Sid, and he was in the full clown makeup. He's like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Oh, hey man, what's up?" He was like kind of trippy. So I had seen House of a Thousand Corpses before, and then like my first introduction with Sid was that moment.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, he was the very first guest on the show, which was intimidating, but he was a super nice guy and it made it very easy. But I was, it's like my first interview with Sid Haig is on the show. But I always thought it was very cool that he agreed to do it. This was before podcasts were a thing, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll do the show." And
yeah,
it worked out. And I've met him a bunch of times, had dinner with him. Very nice guy.
He's super nice, and he came out on Hatchet 3, we had him on that. And, it's kind of weird. You see that and you're like, we made him play this like horrible racist. Just like, and he's just, it was funny, but I love that guy. And it's a shame he's gone, but that's life.
Yeah. People that knew him well, like on the convention seat, it wasn't a secret that, things were going down, and he didn't look good, but he, from what I understand, he kept doing the conventions because he wanted, everyone to get to meet him, while they could.
Yeah. I would see him. I don't go to a lot of conventions, but a couple of them when I would go, he was always there, and I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, Sid?" He's super cool.
Yeah. And something I always liked, he kept his prices $10, where some people started going way, way high, especially like when The Walking Dead was really big and stuff, and he kept it $10. And I like that.
Yeah. I like that too. It's like, just be a real person. You don't price gouge people just because you were in a couple movies.
Yeah. All right. So, what are your favorite horror movies currently?
Man, currently, I mean, geez, the thing is, I haven't watched anything really in a long time. I loved Ready or Not. Okay.
I did too. That was a really surprising one. I kind of see everything, and I went into it like, I don't know, whatever, but that was awesome. And the ending is like so unexpected and really made the movie.
I thought it was awesome. I actually really enjoyed Freaky.
I haven't seen that, but I see people who say it's good, so I should watch it.
I cracked up with that. I thought those were really good. Happy Death Day 1 and 2, I enjoyed.
That's another one I was surprised.
They're a lot of fun. I like Chris Landon. Lately, I've seen so many horror things, and because Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, all these things, there's so many options that sometimes I feel like I forget the movies I've seen half the time. Or like back in the day when we were growing up, you had a certain amount of movies that were coming out. Now it's like, wait, what's on Netflix? Oh my God, there's like tons of, I don't even know what that is, and it's kind of
sometimes it's weird if you have so many choices. It makes it hard to even watch anything. You just keep like scrolling through them, and then you don't end up watching anything.
Yeah, and like me and my wife will sit there and we'll scroll and scroll and scroll, and then we usually end up finding something. We're like, why did we watch that? Because think like the last like really exciting thing for me, like horror movie wise, came out of left field, and like I had no idea what it was with Cabin in the Woods, like because I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about Cabin in the Woods. I just remember seeing the poster art, and I was like, I'm going to see this movie. It's going to be awesome. So I didn't know that what it was going to turn into the movie that it turned into, and I was blown away by it. And that's the kind of things I love, that kind of stuff. So that was like for me, I thought that was such a really great horror film.
Yeah, I went to see it with my brother, and we were the same way. We didn't, just whatever. It's a horror movie, but yeah, it's like totally what you're not. And the more of a horror fan you are, I think the more you'll appreciate, Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, I love it, dude. It's such a rad movie. That's like, it kind of reminded me like in a weird way, like when they had the 13 ghosts, where they had the house with all the windows and like the ghosts. Like I love that stuff. I love those movies. Yeah,
and I really like just like the two guys that were in The Office. I thought they were probably funny. Yeah.
Dude, the merman thing was so great. He's like, oh no, the thing's all like, coming at him because he's like backing on the merman. It was so good.
Yeah, really original. That's like
it really was. Awesome movie. Great. I loved it.
So where can people follow Studio 666 to see what comes next?
You mean like social media stuff?
Yeah, so they can see when it's going to start. Is it streaming now?
It's streaming. Well, it's on VOD right now, and it's still, I think it's in some theaters still. You can follow the Foo Fighters page. There's actually a Studio 666 Instagram page and Twitter page and all that stuff. I post behind the scenes stuff every now and then. So, it's just, if you want to see like pictures or other films that I've worked on, my Instagram is just my name, BJ McDonnell, and that's it. Like I have Annabelle, I got all sorts of stuff, like from a camera operator perspective too, but also, a lot of Studio 666 stuff and like the Slayer stuff and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, like Foo Fighters, that page, me, a couple of other people, like you can follow Tony Gardner, who's awesome. He puts a lot of great stuff out because he's done so many horror films and like his special effects. It's all over.
Yeah, it's not hard to find.
No, it's easy. Yeah. It's Dave Grohl, the Foo Fighters. They're all over the place.
Yeah, I heard of that guy. Yeah, and Studio 66, by the way, it's a great name, too.
It used to be called Spooky Movie. That's the working title.
Oh, really?
But we knew
Studio
that was
666, much better.
Yeah, that we knew that we weren't going to call the movie Studios. I mean, we weren't going to call the movie Spooky Movie, but that was just something we had to have a title to start shooting. And so, like all the slate and stuff, they Spooky Movie on it. And we're like, well, there's already a scary movie, so we can't.
That's what I envisioned in my head, like a scary movie kind of spoof thing. But yeah, I'm glad you went with Studio 666. I did want to mention the shirts are coming out. I forget the company. It's Fright Rags. They look great. I was going to order one for the interview, but I'll still order one, but I wouldn't have it in time for the interview. Yeah. But they're really sweet.
I was stoked when Fright Rags did the shirts. I was like, that's so cool. You sit there and you go, okay, cool, man. They're like, the movie's legit. Yeah. Fright Rags putting out the shirt. So I'm like, I was pumped about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cool. A very fun logo. Check it out. Yeah. It's been very fun.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
All right. Let's do this again sometime.
Let's get another movie going. We'll do it.
All right. Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, man.